I'm happy to pick that up.
Yeah, great.
Others might want to too. I want to draw you back to the points Desiree was making earlier about unrealistic expectations, that we often set ourselves really high goals for what we want to get done. And I think in the current climate, getting anything done is fantastic. It might be that you want to have a bit more of a think about times of day that you work best. So prioritizing more challenging work for times of day where you find it easier. Some people find it easiest to work first thing in the morning, others late at night. So having a think about when works best for you. I always have a list of really easy to do tasks for days when I'm struggling. I'm doing a little bit of qualitative coding at the moment, which actually isn't terribly complicated, and I can sit and do that when I'm not having a very good day, or work through some admin. And I think it's helpful there to feel like you've got things that you can tick off the to-do list and get on with. So having a think about what are the more cognitively challenging bits of work to do, and shifting things around in terms of how you're feeling for a day. I also think that, you know, if you're feeling tired and run down, the best thing you can do is turn your computer off and have a few days off. Just set an out of office message and just be confident about doing it, because you are in the long run doing something that's going to improve your productivity and make you better able to work, and that's better for everybody. So think about the cognitive load of the different tasks, prioritize things depending on when you're likely to be working best, and let yourself have a break. I think that's important.
Great, thanks a lot. As this is quite a general question, though, just wondering if anyone else would like to chime in. Yeah, Hendrik. Your
microphone on. Yeah, I would just, on that question, I would just like to highlight that I read a short essay in Nature recently, and it was written by Lei Su. And this is a postdoc who does like a one-page essay on coping with their work during isolation. They highlight 3 points to limit their time worrying. So very much echoing actually what Nicola just said. To have a clear schedule between what is work and what is non-work, and to dedicate yourself to other tasks. I found that a really helpful article, and I would recommend everybody to have a look at it. It's in Nature, published on the 3rd of April, and the author is Lei Su.
Great. Maybe we could add a link when we post the recording for the webinar. And then Desiree, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. No, I definitely echo the sentiments of Nicola and Hendrik. I guess mine, and I run the risk of sounding like a stuck record, but compassion above all things is critical, right? We can either layer on top of our already significant levels of stress and overwhelm with a voice of, you're not doing enough, you should be doing more, you should be, you know, that kind of rule book that we have as academics. I should, I must, I have to, you know, constantly running in the background. Or like Nicola said, we could give ourselves permission to step back for a minute and slow it down. I know there are other questions in there saying, but yeah, but the deadlines are movable, or it feels, you know, like it's not, there's no give in that situation. But I think the answer is still the same. You're pushing against something with all the weight of you is not going to move this weight that you feel, nor is it going to make you more productive. Taking a step back and really allowing yourself to breathe and find a new rhythm, however slow and steady it might need to be, however short bursts, as Nicola alluded to, said before, right? It's critical, like find a new rhythm. The rhythm you had before doesn't apply here. So we do need to play around with what works best for us and be compassionate.
Elliot, can I just step in? That's reminded me of something I wanted to say in response to Hendrik's presentation earlier, that of going back to your supervisor, if you feel that there are deadlines that you can't work to, and being really clear to say, I need these changed, I need these moved. And I know that actually some people find that their supervisors are really challenging to talk to, and so I would give it a go. But if you are finding that challenging, perhaps think about other ways that you can raise that with your supervisor. And it might be thinking about who are their other students, and talking to them as well, so that you have a little bit of a moral support in going to your supervisor and saying that actually all of us are struggling. We all need a bit of an extension, or we feel that we need the deadlines revised. And if you don't have co-students that you're working alongside, perhaps other people in the research group, other people in your department, and reaching out to other PhD students so that it's not just your voice. And I really urge you, if you're in that position, to feel confident about doing it, because you're not doing it just for you. You're going to be doing it for many other students, your peers. You're doing everybody a favor by doing that. Being the brave person that puts their hand up and says, actually, some of our deadlines around this are really difficult. We need something to change. So if you don't feel you can pick it up with your supervisor directly, thinking about how you create that peer momentum and support your peers to engage in a wider conversation about changing things.
That's great. Yeah, please, Hendrik.
Yes, I think that's a really pertinent point, and I would just like to add to that you can use in your argumentation that institutions the world over are actually extending deadlines at the moment. The DFG has issued communications to that regard. Again, I would highlight a publication, I think in last week's Science, in the working life section, a Chinese author talking about how to deal with peer review. They're getting their comments back on their paper, and the authors say, or the reviewers saying, we want those experiments, they can't do them. So they actually had to approach the journal to ask for mitigating circumstances, I suppose. And this is the time where everybody is having to scramble for this. So don't be shy in asking for it. And, you know, you can use that as your argument that there is precedent for this across the board.
And Desiree, do you have any tips about how to communicate with your supervisor to maybe change expectations?
Compassion. Sorry, I know that I keep saying the same thing, but they're humans as well, and they're humans who are struggling with their own workload, with their own thousands of layers of what it means for their work program, what it means for their well-being, what it means in terms of their family and how they're managing. And often they're not necessarily, I hate speaking in generalizations like that, but they're fine, or maybe they're fine. Maybe they are just coping well and they can't necessarily perceive that this is more difficult for you than it is for them. Whatever it is, again, communication is above all things the way forward. But two, if they're throwing off, you know, if they're discharging their anxiety by making comments, there was a nice one in the questions, you know, about I don't want my boss to think I'm lazy, or maybe they're saying that you are lazy if you need to extend deadlines. That's a product of the situation maybe they're dealing with right now, and they're not probably being their best selves right now either. So if they're not, try not to let those comments, those throwaway comments, add to your level of stress and your overwhelm, right? That is their reality, their experience right now, and you need to maintain yours, right? So don't try and be as objective as you can about comments that are being made, or throwaway comments from other people in the department or wherever you are, and try and be a bit compassionate with what they're bringing to the table at the moment as well, because they're not necessarily being their best selves.
Great, thanks. And yeah, someone posed a question about how do you deal with the feeling that that other people may be experiencing the pandemic in a different way, and that you might have the feeling that you are kind of privileged, and there's other people worse off than you. I guess they're getting at the point that maybe just that the thought of you kind of thinking that, you know, I have this privilege, so I shouldn't be feeling bad about it. Does anyone have any tips on how to deal with that? Hendrik?
Yeah, this question really resonated with me, because it actually took me back to when I was suffering mental health problems, and I would always kind of downplay the severity of my problems by comparing myself with others. And, you know, that simply doesn't work. There are always going to be people out there who are doing better than you, And there are always going to be people out there who are doing worse than you. So that question in the end is not going to get you anywhere ever, because you will always be stuck in the middle. Even when you're at the very top, you will find something to compare yourself with where you think that's better. You know, the well-known imposter syndrome that apparently is widespread throughout academia. So what matters is what you feel. And if you are unhappy about it, then a more important question to ask is, why are you unhappy about it, and what are you unhappy with? That's my take on that.
Great. And would anyone else like to add to that?
I'm aware I don't know so much about the German context, but there's a lot of volunteering opportunities in the UK. So I guess I think one way to think about whether you're not doing enough or whether others are in a different situation is to think about how you can get involved to help in your local community. I think it's how I advocate that without sounding incredibly selfish in doing so, but we know that helping others is a fantastic way to look after yourself. So it might be the kindest thing that you can do for yourself is to have a think about what volunteering things that you can do in your local community.
I'll add my 2 cents and then have to say goodbye. But I echo both of these comments. I think that yes, there's a spectrum of suffering, okay, but as Hendrik said, it absolutely is entirely the way we deal with any of these situations, like we deal with any day-to-day stresses or anxiety or depression, is a product of our upbringing, our experience, our culture, all of those shape who we are and how we filter every situation that we face. So this situation, like all others, is completely unique to us in how we come to it, what resources we bring to it, and what ways we have to deal with what it is we are personally dealing with. So I do think it is really, this is you and you know, your pandemic. How are you coping with it, and what do you need right now to get you through it in the best shape that you can? And with that, I will say thank you so much for organizing this. It's been brilliant to be a part of. Lovely to meet both Hendrik and Nicola and listen to them both speak, and keep it up. And if I can ever help again, please let me know. Take care.
Thanks so much,
Stay
Desiree.
safe.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so there was one question that I came across which didn't have as many votes, but I thought it would be quite nice to address, which is more of a kind of practical question, actually. Someone mentioned that their contract is coming to an end soon, and obviously this is compounding their current worries in addition to everything else, and they were asking how to deal maybe with the situation practically, but I guess also to how to deal with these kinds of the worry. Oh, Hendrik, your Microsoft.
Yeah. I just would like to highlight that, and I've already, maybe it wasn't quite successful, but I did type an online answer to that particular question. But the German government has yesterday announced that contracts can be extended for up to 6 months for scientific staff in training. So again, this sadly, as I read it, although this might be misinterpretation on my part because I haven't actually seen the documentation, just the press release, probably excludes postdocs, but as regards PhDs, they are in training. So in principle, their contracts can be extended by up to 6 months, as by German government decree as of yesterday. Obviously, if you have a contract with a Leibniz association, this might be different. If you are funded from international body and staying in Germany, this might be different. So I would advise you to also check with your supervisor what they know about this. I am aware, of course, that human resources departments at all institutions are incredibly busy at the moment trying to keep the show going, but they would be another port of call. And certainly if you are in an urgent situation where your contract is running out soon, they should really know what